Are you curious what is the cost of living in Naperville, Illinois, especially with all the prices keep going up on everything? Well, I'm going to share you what the current cost of living is in Naperville, Illinois, and we are in February of 2025. I'm Amy Pearson. I'm a local realtor. I serve Western Suburbs as well as downtown Chicago. I make weekly videos just like this one on community information, real estate, and driving tours. If you are planning to move to the area, I'd love to help you find your dream home in the Chicago suburbs. Feel free to check info's below. I'd love to help you find your dream home. All right, so this is a popular video I do every January. I update the numbers so we can see what is the cost of living. Things keep going up. I'm feeling it when you go to the grocery store that you're not getting as much food as you used to. Okay, so I'm gonna do a comparison. These numbers I got from Numbeo. I will put the link below. You can compare any town you want to compare two towns' cost of living. I picked out ones that I thought were the most interesting, the greatest difference, and there was a few that actually was more in Naperville than Chicago. The first one we're gonna start off with would be a bottle of mid-range wine. In Chicago, it's $15 versus Naperville, $6.50. So it is a 56% cheaper to buy it in Naperville than Chicago. One of the places where it is more in Naperville would be a monthly transportation pass, which this would be, if you live in Naperville, it's the Metra train pass. It is $129 in Naperville versus just $75 if you lived in Chicago. You have to travel further from Naperville to get to Chicago. That's why the monthly pass is so much more. It's 72% more. So that would be definitely why it costs more, $129. People are not going into the office as much, so people are maybe just doing 2 or 3 days in the office. You might not have to get a monthly pass. Okay, another one, I did a cost of living difference, Chicago versus Naperville. Gas prices, keep going up. Gas is 17% cheaper in Naperville. I always get my gas in the suburbs. If I'm in the city, I pull up to get into the suburbs because it's always cheaper. So gas in Chicago versus Naperville is 17% cheaper in Naperville. Another one I thought was interesting, which ironically, my husband and I were just talking about utilities because it's winter and everything's a little bit more with the heat right now. We used to have a 3-bedroom condo in Chicago, and he said it actually costs more, our 3-bedroom condo, than our house in the suburbs to heat. But then I looked at this, comparing electricity. It is actually 17% less in Naperville versus Chicago for utilities, which is electricity, heating, cooling, water, garbage. It is a little bit cheaper in the Naperville versus Chicago. That was interesting. Another comparison that really jumped out for differences would be fitness clubs. Monthly for one adult, it is actually more in Naperville versus Chicago. It is 33% more. I'm thinking because maybe there's less gyms in the suburbs versus Chicago. There's so many gyms in Chicago. So maybe that's why it's more in Naperville versus Chicago. This is another popular one, childcare. I get this question a lot. Childcare in Naperville is, you ready for this? 40% lower than in Chicago. 40% lower than in Chicago. I've got here preschool or kindergarten, full day, private, monthly for one child. Naperville, it's $1,350 versus Chicago, $2,275. So it is cheaper. We moved here when my daughter was in daycare, and I did notice it was a little bit cheaper daycare, and it was easier to get in. It's very competitive getting into daycare in Chicago. Next comparison, we will do buying an apartment, city versus Chicago versus Naperville. Price per square foot to buy an apartment in the city center, it is 24% cheaper to buy in Naperville versus Chicago. So I hope you found that interesting. Let me see if there's any other interesting, okay, 2 more interesting ones you guys will find interesting. Restaurant prices, 25% lower in Naperville, and grocery prices, 34% lower in Naperville. So there you have it. That's where we are in 2025, updated cost of living prices. Hope you found that interesting. If you're thinking of moving to the area, I'd love to help you find your dream home. Info's below. I've got another great video coming up, so stick around. Hope you enjoy it.